So early on in youth ministry, you've probably been there. I was running a high school and a middle school ministry separate, but I was the only guy. And so the way I actually did it, which I don't necessarily recommend this as a strategy anymore, and I can tell you why in future videos, but I had youth ministry, I had middle school ministry and high school ministry staggered. So one started at 6:06, one started at 7:07. I thought I was really, really cute for coming up with that idea, but other people have come up with that idea before. Anyway, in my middle school ministry, I had a middle school ministry of girls, like only girls. I had about 8 or 6 middle school girls on a regular basis, and we had no boys. In fact, it was a pretty big issue, big enough that there were families leaving the church over it. That being said, I had literally only been there for about 4 months, and so one family left the church days after I accepted the job, and my senior pastor was like, bro, that's the whole reason why we're hiring this guy, to like help get more people here, get more, boys here for your son. And so anyway, I had middle school ministry, and I was playing leader roulette. And I'll tell you what leader roulette is. I only had girl leaders enlisted to serve in my middle school ministry. No boy leaders, because I had no boy students. And so in my brain, I was like, I'll get to that problem when it happens. And so there I was in the lobby welcoming middle school students. And I should also say that I had like 90 minutes of programming. So say 30 minutes or so of games, 30 minutes of teaching, and then 30 minutes of small group. That last 30 minutes was the overlapping part. So I sent middle schoolers off to their small group for those 30 minutes, and then the high schoolers started right at that time. So I was unavailable to ever step in as some sort of small group leader. So anyway, middle school ministry is starting somewhere around 6:06 or so. Can't say for certain the exact moment. And in walks a boy, and my face, I'm like, oh dang, we got trouble. Now, the good news was I did have some high school boys, and so then thus I did have high school boy volunteers. And so one of my high school boy volunteers, his name was Aaron Kuntz. Shout out to Aaron Kuntz, Beaver Creek, Ohio, AC for short. I call him up. I was like, dude, I know you don't need to be here till 7, but can you pop in a few minutes early, and can you help run and cover this middle school boy small group that I was now going to figure out how to staff it. Right now, I had a boy. Now I needed boy small group leaders. And so in this video today, what we are going to talk about is the why of volunteers in youth ministry. And in fact, I actually was going to make this one video. I was going to talk about the why of youth ministry volunteers, the recruiting of youth ministry volunteers, and the training of youth ministry volunteers. And as I started scripting it out, I realized, man, this is a long video. So as a part of the 2024 Masterclass, I know I said in the last video this is going to be the last one, but it's not. We are going to extend this one and break it apart into 3 different videos. So a video series inside another video series. That's why you should subscribe, because in this video we're talking about the why of youth ministry volunteers, and in future videos we're going to be talking about how to recruit, and then we're also going to be talking about training. All of this is a part of the free on-demand 2024 Youth Ministry Masterclass. Welcome to the Hybrid Ministry Show. Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Hybrid Ministry Show. I am Nick Clason. Just like I was saying, I've been in youth ministry. The story I shared in the intro was about, I think 12, 13 years ago now at this point. No boys small group leaders. And so from that point, I have learned quite a few things about youth ministry. I've learned quite a few things about youth ministry volunteers. And one of the key things for youth ministry and youth ministry volunteers is the need for volunteers to help scale up in pastoral care. In fact, we have a video that's linked right here at the top of this screen where we talked about ways to use hybrid ministry to enhance the pastoral care and the shepherding in your youth ministry and in your student ministry. And so I'm not going to get too deep into that and tools and tips and tricks on how to equip your volunteers to reach out to your students and to care for your students, but you should check that out if that's something that you're interested in. However, one of the key things, not to sound too corporate, not to sound too business, is that you need youth ministry leaders to help scale up the care. I mean, the reality of the fact is that you as an individual, singular, one-person youth ministry, one-man band, you only have so much capacity. And maybe you're a super relational person, and so your capacity may be higher than someone who's not quite as relational as you. But at the end of the day, you realize that like once you scale past 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, I don't know, definitely 80, you're not going to be able to know every single student's name, every single student's story, every single student's things going on in their families. You're not going to be able to attend every single student's games and every single student's extracurricular types of things. And so that is why youth ministry is so important, is because your volunteers help spread out that care. I mean, that's the crux, the thesis, the basis for the entire book, written by Orange, Lead Small, one of my all-time favorite resources. If you haven't checked it out, link down below in the show notes. But it is a youth ministry volunteer's job description. And I actually used it in a lot of cases to help onboard some of my leaders. I say, hey, read this. And if this lights a fire within you, then let's keep talking. And that'll be kind of the preliminary starting foundation for a lot of my discussions. So it helps expand our reach. Speaking of expanding reach, I think all of us realize and see the need for social media. Well, what I've done for you is I've actually laid out a completely free digital strategy. I call it my hybrid ministry, done for you 1 month posting strategy. It's linked right here down below. Very first link in the top of this video. I want you to check out my completely free ebook. And not only can you become the face of your youth ministry social media, not only can you get students as a main primary face of your youth ministry social media, but you can now also, as a part of this video, enlist your volunteers to be a part of your youth ministry and especially what they're doing on social media. But reason number 2, beyond scaling up pastoral care so that you can kind of spread out the need and the desire and knowing of students, there's just a camaraderie that comes with people locking arms and going together. I remember my students, we would take them to a thing called Dare to Share. You've maybe heard of it before. And at one point in the Dare to Share conference, what they would do is they'd actually send, and nowadays they do Dare to Share live, and so you kind of host it as like a live stream event. But back in the day, they would go city to city, and so we would kind of chase whatever city they were in. Sometimes they're in Dayton, Ohio. Sometimes they're in Columbus, Ohio. I think maybe one time they're in Cincinnati, Ohio. But nonetheless, we would kind of go to the conference. They'd have the worship and the speakers and all the things. But at one point, they'd send youth ministries all throughout the city of wherever the hosting of the event was happening, and they would say, go door to door, collect cans, pass out light bulbs, whatever the case might be, but share the gospel with people. And my students, I remember they'd always be so nervous and freaked out. I mean, come on, wouldn't you? But one of the things that was so helpful about it was it would help kind of break down the barrier and the entry level of starting a gospel conversation. But I remember the atmosphere and the attitude once we arrived back in the conference room. Everyone in that place, they were hyped. They were so pumped up because they had gone out, and they actually, I remember one time in one of the things, they equated it to like being on a military mission. You have this unbreakable bond because you've been on mission together. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what a youth ministry volunteer team can be. You, as a youth pastor, you have a mission to help reach students and share the gospel and help point them to Jesus. But then you also have leaders who are adopting that same mindset and strategy. And maybe they're not there yet, but you're helping kind of bring them along or level them up into that. And once you kind of have that unbreakable bond, you realize that even after a bad night of youth ministry, you guys are still there together, that you're still around some other people who are like-minded, on the same page. And beyond just that, beyond just like the camaraderie, you have the opportunity to make real friends with these people. I remember I worked at a church in Cincinnati, Ohio, and one of my volunteers became one of my best friends, and we met every single Tuesday morning. We met to recite Bible verses together, just kind of keep each other accountable. And still to this day, even now at that point, something like 5, 6, 7 years ago, we'll call each other every once in a while, and we'll just kind of keep up with each other's lives. The third reason why you need volunteers in your youth ministry is simply because of the fact that students need more than you to speak into their life and into their faith story. In fact, it takes 5 people in the book Growing Young by Kara Powell. She talked about the importance, and that's going to be linked down below in the show notes or wherever your podcasts catch. You can check it out in the link in the description or at hybridministry.xyz/083. Beyond your show notes, we also have transcripts. But Kara Powell said that we need 5 people Students need 5 people in their lives. If they have 5 people speaking into their lives of their faith beyond just mom and dad, but small group leaders and youth pastors and maybe even like adults that they serve in the nursery with, that they rub shoulders with and they see on a regular, ongoing basis. You need leaders in your life because you are not going to be the only primary person speaking into students' lives. And if you are, that's going to leave them with a less full, less robust faith. They need other voices speaking into it. So you can be a voice, and their small group leader can be a voice, and maybe their small group co-leader can be a voice, and maybe someone on the serving team that's overseeing the greeters, which they're a member of serving on the youth ministry team or whatever the case might be. But fill it in so that there's 5 people. 5 people seems to be the kind of key marker. And now, listen, I get it. You might be sitting there thinking, man, I don't have 5 people. I know it can be difficult, and that's why we're talking on the next video about how to recruit the best youth ministry volunteers, where to get them, where to find them, how to do it. That is linked right here on the video. So don't forget, in this podcast, we are making digital discipleship easy, possible, accessible in this particular video through the ministry of our small group leaders. So don't forget, and as always, stay hybrid.